The first time my ex-wife's sister whispered, "Be my husband," I thought grief had finally driven her insane. We were standing in the hallway of the courthouse, surrounded by strangers, lawyers, and the quiet footsteps of people whose lives were being divided by signatures. My divorce papers were still warm in my hand. Across the room, my ex-wife, Claire, was laughing with the men she had left me for. And beside me stood Emily. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking. Then she leaned close enough that I could feel her breath against my ear. "Please," she whispered. "Be my husband." I stared at her. For 3 years, Emily had been my sister-in-law. For 3 years, she had called me Mark. And now, 10 minutes after my marriage officially ended, she was asking me to marry her. "Emily," I whispered back, "what are you talking about?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I know how it sounds." "No," I said. "You don't." She looked toward her sister. Claire was still smiling. She had never looked happier. That smile was the same one she had worn when she told me she wanted a divorce. "I'm sorry," Claire had said that morning. "I love someone else." I had asked her if there was anything I could do to save us. She had looked at me with tired eyes. "No, Mark. You can't compete with a feeling that's already gone." The feeling had apparently gone 6 months earlier. I had simply been the last person to know. Now, as I stood in the courthouse, watching the woman I had loved walk away with another man, her younger sister was asking me to become her husband. "Why?" I asked Emily. She swallowed hard. "Because I need someone kind." The answer hurt more than it should have. "You don't marry someone because they're kind." "I know." "Then why me?" Her lips trembled. "Because you already know what it feels like to lose everything and still worry about everyone else." I said nothing. Emily had seen things no one else had. She had seen me working double shifts to pay Claire's medical bills when Claire had pneumonia. She had seen me take care of her mother after a surgery. She had seen me bring groceries to her father when he could Northwest longer drive. She had seen me stay, even when Claire stopped loving me. Even when staying became painful. But kindness had never saved my marriage. So I didn't understand why she believed it could save hers. "Emily," I said softly, "I'm not the man you should marry." She looked at me. "I'm not asking you to love me." That stopped me. "Then what are you asking?" She glanced down the hallway. Her sister and the men beside her were gone. Emily wiped her tears. "I'm asking you to help me survive." And that was when I realized this had nothing to do with romance. Emily had been diagnosed with cancer 3 months earlier. She hadn't told anyone. Not her parents. Not Claire. Not me. The disease had already spread. She had surgery scheduled for the following week. But the doctors had warned her that the treatment would be long, expensive, and uncertain. She had no insurance. She had lost her job after missing too many days for appointments. And the apartment she rented had just been sold. "I can't tell my parents," she said. "My mother will fall apart. My father will blame himself. Claire will make it about herself." I almost laughed bitterly. "She's your sister." "I know." "Then why not tell her?" Emily looked at the courthouse doors. "Because today is supposed to be her happiest day." I stared at her. "Emily, she just divorced me." "I know." "She left me for someone else." "I know." "She didn't even look back." Emily's eyes filled again. "That's why I'm asking you." I shook my head. "You're asking the wrong person." "No," she whispered. "You're the only person I know who would help me without asking what you get in return." That sentence stayed with me. Because she was right. And because I hated that she was right. 3 days later, I married Emily in a small hospital chapel. There were no flowers. No guests. No music. Just a judge, a nurse who had volunteered to witness the ceremony, and Emily wearing a simple blue sweater. When the judge asked if I took her as my wife, I looked at her. She was pale. terrified. Trying desperately not to cry. Yes, I said. Emily whispered, I do. The marriage was supposed to be temporary. That was our agreement. I would help her through treatment. She would have someone listed as an emergency contact. Her parents would be protected from the truth until she was ready. And when everything was over, we would quietly divorce. Simple. Clean. That was what we told ourselves. But life rarely respects the plans people make when they are afraid. I moved Emily into my small house. The same house where Claire and I had once lived. At first, Emily refused to sleep in the master bedroom. So I gave it to her. I slept on the couch. She complained about it every morning. You're going to destroy your back. I'm already divorced. My back is the least of my problems. She smiled for the first time in weeks. It was a small smile. But I remembered it. Treatment began. The days became difficult. Some mornings, Emily could barely stand. Some nights, she vomited until her entire body shook. I learned how to cook meals she could tolerate. I drove her to appointments. I sat beside her during chemotherapy. I pretended not to notice when she cried in the bathroom. And she pretended not to notice when I cried in the garage. One evening, I found her sitting on the front steps. The sun was going down. She was wearing a knitted hat, and her hands were wrapped around a cup of tea. You should be inside, I said. I wanted to see the sunset. I sat beside her. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Then she said, "Do you still love my sister?" The question caught me off guard. No. It was the truth. At least, I thought it was. Emily nodded. Good. I looked at her. Why? Because I don't think I could stand being married to a man who was still waiting for my sister to come back. I stared at her. We're not really married. She looked down at her hands. I know. The silence changed. Something unspoken moved between us. Something dangerous. Something neither of us wanted to name. Then, one afternoon, Claire showed up at the house. She stood on the porch with the same confident smile she had worn in court. "Mark," she said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "What do you want?" She glanced at the house. I heard about Emily. My heart stopped. How? Mom told me. I looked away. Emily's parents had finally been told. They had found out 2 weeks earlier after Emily collapsed at the grocery store. Claire crossed her arms. "You married my sister?" "Yes." "Why?" I almost laughed. "Why do you care?" Her expression hardened. "I'm still her sister." "Then act like one." She flinched. For the first time, Claire looked ashamed. "I made mistakes." "You did." "I was unhappy." "You were allowed to leave." "I know." "Then don't come here looking for forgiveness because Emily is sick." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not." "Then why are you here?" She looked at the front door. "Because she hates me." I had no answer. Claire wiped her face. "She won't talk to me. She says I abandoned everyone. She says I only care when something is happening to me." I looked at her. "Is she wrong?" Claire cried then. Not dramatically. Not like someone trying to manipulate me. She simply stood there and cried. "I don't know how to fix what I broke." I thought about the woman who had broken me. And for the first time, I understood that broken people could hurt others without knowing how to repair themselves. "You can't fix everything," I said. "But you can show up." Claire nodded. So she did. At first, Emily refused to see her. Then Claire began leaving things on the porch. Soup. Books. Fresh flowers. A handwritten note. She never knocked. She never demanded forgiveness. She simply showed up. Weeks passed. One morning, Emily found Claire sitting in her car outside the house. She stood in the driveway for a long time. Then she walked over. I watched from the window as the sisters spoke. I couldn't hear what they said. But eventually, Claire began crying. And Emily hugged her. It wasn't a perfect reunion. There were still wounds. There were still questions. But sometimes love doesn't begin with forgiveness. Sometimes it begins with someone finally staying long enough to hear the truth. Months later, the doctors gave us unexpected news. The treatment was working. Emily was getting better. Not cured. Not guaranteed. But better. The day she rang the bell at the cancer center, her parents were there. Claire was there. And I stood beside her. When Emily pulled the rope, the bell rang through the entire room. Everyone applauded. Emily laughed and cried at the same time. Then she turned to me. "I think we should get divorced." I smiled. "I think so too." She looked hurt. I immediately regretted the smile. "Not because I don't care about you," I said. "Then why?" "Because you deserve to choose your life freely." Her eyes softened. "And what if I choose you?" I couldn't speak. Emily stepped closer. "Mark, you married me because I was afraid of dying alone." I nodded. "And I fell in love with you because you taught me. I didn't have to be afraid of living." My eyes burned. "Emily. I know this started as something strange. I know you were hurt. I know I was sick and scared. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being my sister's ex-husband." She reached for my hand. "You became my home." I looked at her. For years, I had believed love was something that could be lost forever. But maybe love was not always the person who left. Maybe sometimes, after everything fell apart, love was the person who quietly stayed beside you while you learned how to stand again. We did get divorced. 3 months later. This time, we stood in the courthouse holding hands. The same place where our first marriages had ended. The same place where our strange little marriage had begun. When the judge finalized the divorce, Emily turned to me. "So," she whispered. "So. Be my husband." I laughed through my tears. "You already asked me that. I'm asking again. This time, are you sure?" She smiled. "For the first time in my life." We remarried 6 months later. Claire stood beside Emily as her maid of honor. And when she gave the toast, she looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I lost a brother when my marriage ended," she said. "Then I gained one when I finally learned what kindness really was." Everyone laughed softly. Emily squeezed my hand. I squeezed hers back. Our story had begun with divorce, betrayal, illness, and fear. But it had not ended there. Because sometimes the greatest love stories do not begin with two people falling in love. Sometimes they begin with two broken people choosing to help each other survive. And sometimes, if they are lucky, kindness stays long enough to become something even more beautiful.